I made a handy dandy little tool that some of you might like to play with that'll help you calculate what level of walkers you can expect to see in various areas on the Guild Wars battle map. As many of you know, I've mentioned before that when you say something to me like, oh, yeah, I can handle walkers up to level 27, that is good to know, but it doesn't really help me when we're planning a Guild Wars team strategy. It doesn't really help me to know exactly where on the battle map you can handle or find yourself being challenged. And the reason for that is because Guild Wars adjusts the difficulty that you personally see based on your personal levels. This particular little spreadsheet is going to help us to come to a common language where you can plug in some numbers and it'll do some automatic calculations for you. And we'll be able to see where the level of the walkers will be in the various sectors for you personally. So let me show you a little bit how that works. Let me start by saying this little spreadsheet that you see on the front here is going to be looking for some inputs. In particular, I need to know your top survivor levels, and I also need to know the highest piece of equipment, whether it's weapons or armor, that any of your survivors can handle. So let's take a look at my own levels of survivors and gear. So when I look at my survivors, what I want to check for here is to see the top 3 levels of heroes. Now, in my case, this example is going to be less than interesting because it just coincidentally, all my heroes are at the maximum level. So let's just say Merle was top, Sasha's top, and Mercer's top. I'll take those 3 numbers, carry them over to this nifty little spreadsheet, if I can bring it up again, and pop in level 32, and level 32 for those 3 survivors. The next thing I need to do is get the level of my top piece of equipment. So let me go back to my camp and head over to the workshop. And in here, I would start looking for the highest piece of equipment that's in my arsenal. So I need to make sure I'm looking at both weapons and, as I said, armor. It doesn't matter which one, whichever one is highest is the one you pick. Now, in my case, I happen to know that my highest pieces of equipment in my arsenal are level 36. So that's the number I'm going to use. I want to mention, if you happen to have a piece of equipment that is so high that none of your heroes can take it, don't use that number. Use the level of the piece of equipment that your heroes can actually take and use. That's the value that the game, that Guild Wars is going to use to do these calculations. So that's the one you should use as well. So pick your top number. I'm going to take 36 because that's the highest level of the equipment that my heroes have and can use. I'm going to pop it here as a 36 right there. Now, my little spreadsheet has calculated kind of this magic number over here. For me, the magic number is 33. That's really a baseline that Guild Wars is going to use to calculate the difficulty of all the different sectors that we might play in Guild Wars. Now let's head over and expand this spreadsheet to show you the rest. Off to the right here, you see a chart that probably looks very familiar to many of you. It contains all of the sectors that are in the Guild Wars map. So we've got Forest 1, Junkyard 6, all the way down to Sanctuary 20. There are A, B, and D sectors in many of those. Some of them just have A and B sectors and C sectors, but the Sanctuary ones also have a D sector. So those are all represented on here. The first three columns here are representative of the relative difficulty of those various sectors and islands. And those relative difficulties are the same for everyone, which is why we actually have numbers in here. The next set of columns for the A, B, D, and also the C sectors. This section, I just didn't want to lose. It has the scoring information for each individual sector area. But what I want you to focus on for now is this last two columns that I added, which represent the walker difficulties for you. So what this nice little spreadsheet is doing, it's based on the values that you entered and this nifty calculation of your baseline or nominal difficulty. Using some information from the table, I've calculated what the level of the walkers are likely going to be for you. Now, I have quadrant 1 and quadrant 4 represented here. For quadrant 2 and quadrant 3, we just kind of have to interpolate. They'll be somewhere in between these two. But let's take a look at an example. So for Forest 1, the quadrant 1s, whether they be an A, B, or C, I can expect to see walkers at difficulty level 33. Basically the same difficulty as my heroes and my gear. The quadrant 4, I can expect to see walkers at level 35. If we go up to J6, I can expect to see a little more difficulty in the walkers there, starting at level 34 and up to level 36. If we jump in the middle, let's say J8, I can expect to see quadrant 1 walkers at level 40 and quadrant 4 walkers at level 42. And if we go all the way up to Sanctuary 20, I can expect to see walkers at level 52 up to level 54 in quadrant 4. So that is a basic explanation of how you can work this spreadsheet or use the spreadsheet to calculate the level of the walkers in each sector on the battle map for Guild Wars. And once you have that calculation, if you happen to know your comfort in normal everyday missions, like in the challenge, or how high the walkers get when you're playing Last Stand, or other missions for that matter. But if you know where your people start to get killed off, that kind of tells us how far up the battle map you likely can go, or at least what your expected maximum would be at this particular time, using this little sheet. And that's really helpful when we're doing Guild Wars planning, or when you're thinking to say to me or to someone else on the team, hey, when we plan our next Guild Wars, I think I'm ready to move up a little bit right now. And you can kind of look at this sheet, figure out the walker difficulties for you, see where you land, and see when it's practical to move up, or if necessary, move back down. I am going to share a link for this spreadsheet. You will not be able to enter your values in it directly, but you can make a copy of this little spreadsheet in your own Google Drive area. And once you do that, you'll be able to plug in your 4 magic values here for survivor levels and equipment levels too, and it'll do the automatic calculations for you. I hope this has been a little bit of help, and see you in the funny papers.